it, and we thought, okay, because everyone is in lockdown, this is a good time to have a series of webinars to educate our university students to see what to expect when they join the industry. So likewise, this is our first webinar, and we are going to have a series of webinars until end of April or till the beginning of May. So every Thursday, 2:30, you all can expect a webinar on a different topic. Every week it will be different, mainly to touch base on the industry requirements. So if you look at the heading of today's webinar, it's test automation with Selenide. So likewise, we are hoping to have some of other test automation tools, webinars such as other automation tools, and also something along those AWS cloud computing and how you should code, how to code clean and source control. Likewise, we'll be discussing on different sort of topics. So I encourage you all to come every week at this time. We'll be sharing the Zoom or a similar platform link with all of you all. I hope all of you all will enjoy and get most out of this webinar. Please feel free to disturb and ask questions. So Harshana, my colleague, will conduct this webinar on the test automation with Selenide. And also one thing to note is every Monday, we'll be putting out the topic that we'll be covering that week on our social media platform. So follow our social media platforms. You'll be able to get to know the latest info on this webinar as well as some of the other webinars that we do. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Harshana.
Yeah, thank you, Harindu. Hello, everyone, and welcome you all to this webinar. Good afternoon, and as you may know, today's session is on test automation with Selenide. So we shall start. A bit about myself. I'm Harshana Madanayaka, working as a senior quality assurance engineer in ISM APAC. We are a product-based company. We are sort of mainly developing an e-commerce platform. Right, you can contact me either through LinkedIn or through my email. Enough talking, let's get into the topic. Test automation with Selenide. Right, before starting the real thing, well, the time is 2:30 and it's we are into the afternoon, and I think this is a sleepy time for many of you. So I would love to see your interactions, because then we can sort of interactively do this session. And at the meantime, I'd like to request you to keep all your questions posted at the towards the end. And anytime, if you wish to, you can interact and clarify, but the detailed questions, we'll keep them towards the end. Right. Well, how many of you, I mean, we are doing it for the undergraduates, so we'll be having from first year to final year. So how many of you have heard of quality assurance? What do you mean by quality assurance? Have you ever heard about a term called testing? What do you think? If anyone is willing to answer, you can jump in and answer the question to start with. Anyone would like to answer? What do you think, and what do you feel by? I mean, when you hear the word testing or test automation, right? I hope usually in the Sri Lankan audience is usually very silent. So as undergraduates, I do hope the same from you all. So anyway, testing, you basically, when it comes to the industry, once the software is developed, you do the testing, and simultaneously you start the process of testing even before start the developing. That's a process. And you have got two avenues. Basically, you say it as, and it is known as manual and automation. When it comes to automation, basically you can automate two platforms. One is web platform, and you can do the same for the desktop platforms as well. So we usually write different types of tests, isn't it? How many of you have written test cases either in manual or in technical terms using Selenium or whatever? I do appreciate your interactions, right? Because otherwise this could work both ways, as an icebreaker and as well as a good motivation for the people who are listening. So if anyone is willing to answer. Have you ever wrote any test case? Right. We basically automate web applications. Rather, well, today's topic is on Selenide, so it's based on Selenium. If you haven't heard, you better have sort of an idea of what the Selenium is before stepping into Selenide. I'll try to bridge the gap as much as I can, because for you to make it comfortable in the Selenide context, but it's better if you have some sort of an background with Selenium, so you can have a grip on what I am referring to better. So basically, web applications, we typically write scripts that open web application and in web browser, either in real or in headless mode. And we start interacting. We start clicking, we start typing, and whatever you call it, we call those as interactions. So that is UI tests. What's the common, the most common tool that you use in web testing? Well, many of you would love to say that is Selenium. When it comes to Java world, yes, that is Selenium, right? Selenium, when it comes to Selenium, you have different methods in doing that, but the most familiar or preferred method is using WebDriver, right? Well, is it a great tool, WebDriver? It should, right? It should. Yes, it is. But doesn't it has room or space for improvements? How about the expressibility of the tool? How about the stability of the tool? Well, that's why you need Selenide. Well, there was it is a great tool, no doubt about that. No one can hide that fact and ignore that fact too. I mean, Selenide is also based on Selenium. That's a wrapper written on top of the Selenium, rather to be precise and short, but I'll explain you intensively down the line. But before we start, that's why, I mean, the reason why it came out to the industry or to the testing context, because it does have much stability, much expressibility. It is very easy to handle. So because of such reasons, that Selenide came into the scene. Right, Selenide, like I told you, is an open source software testing tool for writing concise, expressive, and stable tests. Let's look at more comprehensive introduction to Selenide. Selenide is a framework for test automation powered by Selenium WebDriver. And it was authored, or it was found by Andrei Solntsev, right? Selenide is a framework for test automation powered by Selenium WebDriver. That's why I told you that it is written on top of Selenium Selenium rather, right? Like I told you, it's concise, fluent, right? Fluent API for tests. What do you mean by API for tests? Selenium is also it's interacting with the browser through API. So that's why it says it's a fluent API rather than Selenium. It's a concise. You would see why it's concise. There is a space for stable tests, and it has AJAX support. It has more powerful selectors, and it's about very simple configuration. So that's why when you take a gist of why Selenide, you can say you can point out these key features. That's why Selenide has come into the scene, and people sort of now drastically moving towards that because of its conciseness, because of its fluency, because of its conciseness, and powerfulness of it, and the simplicity over it. Right. Let's see. Like I told you, you need a bit of a background in Selenium. To be honest, to get on board, like I told you, I'll try and make that gap smaller by getting examples from Selenium and do the comparison while going forward. Selenide comes to you as a Java library. So basically, now I've told you what Selenide is and why Selenide is. Right. So Selenide comes to you as a Java library. Either you can directly add that to your Selenium Java project as an external Java library, Java file, like you do in your normal Java project, or you can use Maven to build your code, and you can use this Selenide dependency in your Maven POM file. Either way, you can get that involved in your scripting. Let me try and show you the place. Here, I have given all these links in the later slides until towards the end. You can get into this link, and you can here, by clicking here, you can download the jar, and you can refer to the dependency over here, right? So am I clear to everybody, at least to many? Because just talking won't help, because this should be an interactive session. Like I told you, the time is 2:30, and people tend to, close their eyes a bit. So I need you all to interact and help each other. So let's help each other in doing this, so that it makes more interactive and interesting, right? So am I clear to everyone up until now? Am I audible to everyone? Yeah.
Yes,
I thought,
yes.
Yeah, I thought someone was trying to pose a question, but there was only a bit of noise, nothing else. Anyway, am I clear up until now to everybody? Can we proceed?
Yes.
All right, I heard yes. So then we can, I think we can proceed. Right. These are the links. I've provided these two links in the end as well. So let's get into real coding. Let's get into real action rather. Right. It's 3 simple steps. It says that, well, basically, it's about, I'll give you a sort of wrap in the content of what I'm trying to explain throughout. So then you can have a big picture in your mind and you can better concentrate on what I'm saying. So I'm going to explain you what is selenide, like I did. And now we have spoke why, and now about the real action. In this, I'm going to explain you the selenide class, the selenide element, the conditions, and about the selectors, and about element collections and what you can do on top of that. I've got a code demonstration as well. That's the better part of this presentation, because you can then better understand why I'm saying this different things in down the line when I'm referring to. So then, right. It says that brilliant software, you don't need much documentation. So when you are understanding line by line, bit by bit, you would realize that this is brilliant software, as you don't need much of documentation, right? It's 3 steps. Enough talking. 3 steps. It just when you say it's web application automation or scripting, first without doing anything, first what you need to do is you need to go and open the window or the application. In Selenium, you call the driver. So basically, how do you do that in Selenium? You have a hell of a lot of things to do before you get into this step. I'll try and explain you if I can. Here you go. If you can see my screen, this is the typical Selenium way. You first need to define your driver, like in this. You don't need to focus on these things, right? These are some further steps where you define your properties in different files. You don't need to focus on this the code chunk that I've highlighted. Just focus on the points that I'm referring to for the time being. So in Selenium, if you want to start, you need to first navigate to your URL. So before navigating, you need to do certain steps, right? The first thing is you need to you need to define your driver, right? And then you need to give your Chrome driver, like I told you. Excuse me for the people who don't have any sort of an idea as to what the Selenium is, excuse me, but this is for the people who have some sort of an idea as to what Selenium is, because I don't have much time remaining in this webinar, so I need to push everything in within the context. So I'm not going to explain you extensively on what the Selenium is and the coding with regard to Selenium and the Selenium basics. I hope the people who are joining in to have some sort of an idea. I'll try, like I told you, I'll try to bridge that gap as and when I can, to the extent that it is possible, right? So first you need to define the driver, and you need to point where your Chrome, if you wish to open it through Chrome or Firefox, or either using Edge, you have to download that respective driver, and you need to point yourself to that. So you need to say WebDriver, where is your respective browser driver is. This is what I've done here, there, right? And then you need to get your first step is this, and then you have to do this, and then this. Then you can open, right? Then the Chrome driver instance is being directed to your driver object, and then you can play around and get your get your scripts up and running. So first thing is, like I told you, driver, and you need to get your URL. So in Selenium, you need to do all these steps, and then you need to do this driver.get, and you can pass the string over here, right? And but in Selenide, it's just a matter of opening by a single line. Open and just give the name of the page, just like this. Just like this. Open and give your string, the URL that you need to open. You need to have some imports to do this, as you have added your POM, the dependency to a POM file, or you have either manually integrated your jar file to your project. As and when you write this, it'll fetch it from the project or from the POM file, and it'll get the link. It'll set up the link rather. So this is the imports that you need, the com.codebone, and these are the Selenium related imports, but these are the Selenide related imports, right? So this is the line that you opening, and then once you open, you need to take a grip of, or you need to locate an element before doing, before start interacting with the web elements. You need to locate, and there are a set of locators in different you find different locators. You find CSS locators, XPaths, you find IDs and whatever, and you can use CSS here. You can use IDs and XPath as well in Selenium. I'll explain you down the line. You can use, for the time being, it's mainly, preferably used locator is the CSS locators. You can use, and here I'll go through the presentation and explain you. Here it's dollar and the locator, and dot, you can perform action, right? It means that here's the dollar and this is the locator, and you can perform different actions. You have many actions. You can, by your intelligence, you can get this suggestions list, and there are different actions which you can perform on top of Selenide element. This one such action. You can click, or you can type using send keys, and you can do different actions, right? Let's get into the presentation. Right. If something is unclear, or I do not autonomously get to know that you don't, these places are not clear. So if anyone feels is anywhere is unclear, just top up and post your question. And when I'll try and answer your question, and we'll keep the long questions up at the end. But don't feel afraid to post your questions on unclear points at and when I'm explaining, right? And either you can on an element, on a Selenide element, you can either perform action, or you can perform an assertion using this check, and using the inbuilt set of conditions in Selenide. Rather, when it comes to Selenium, you need to have either a TestNG or JUnit as your test frameworks or assertion frameworks. Rather, they are testing frameworks. So you need to have them to perform some validation. So here, it comes inbuilt using this check methods, right? So let's get into some more. selectors and main methods. So here it's like I showed you, you can either locate a Selenide element using dollar or dollar and by. So, this is the Selenide syntax. You need to follow them. This returns object of Selenide element class that represents first element found by the CSS locator on the page. It says that you can give the CSS locator here, and it returns the object of the Selenide element class that represents the first element found by the CSS locator on the page. There can be many referred to by this CSS locator. There can be, I mean, the people who has a sort of an automation background knows that when you take a selector, that you will find that sometimes you will find more than one element in your DOM by that particular selector. So it says in such occasions, it returns the first element found by the CSS locator on that page. It returns, regardless of how many elements it has, it returns the first element. And you can refer to that Selenide element using this by class as well. Returns the first Selenide element by the locator of the by class. You can use the XPath using, or I mean, if you have sort of an automation background with Selenium, I'll try and show you. That too. Oh, where is it? Trying to show you the right. Seems as if it is not there. Just looking for that WebDriver runner. Yeah. Just look at this example. If you're using, just forget about this code chunk. Just bear with me. And this is not the way that you typically access the WebDriver in Selenium, but this is in Selenide. I just want to show you how you, if there is anybody who is not fond with Selenium, I just want to bridge the gap, like I told you. So that's why I'm showing you how in Selenium how you locate elements. So in Selenium, you need find by, right? By dot. Either you use this and dot click or whatever the action. So try and map this statement. Try and map this statement over here with the statement over here, right? Or rather the statement. I'll get that to same page so they can understand it better. Over here. So this part is referring to in Selenide by this dollar mark. Find element, the whole of this part is being referred in Selenide by this dollar mark. And this is the CSS locator, same as this. And this is the action in Selenium, same as this. So I told you just a little while ago that you can use this by. It's a class in Selenium, and you can use this by class here as well. It's I don't want to. I think I don't want to go deep into that. I mean, it is same as that you use in Selenium. It's about using by and the CSS or CSS or whatever the locator, XPath, it could be XPath and it could be CSS as well, right? And here, this $, it returns an object of type element collection that represents a collection of all elements found by CSS selector. So think of an instance where your CSS locator locates an element list. So it should return that element list, or sort of say more than one element. So in that occasions, what are you going to do? So that's why this $, is implemented in Selenide. It returns the object of type element collection. So it returns that type of element collection. So it has more than one element. So you can either iterate the list and you can find the relevant element that you are referring or that you're looking for within the list, and you can perform rather, I mean, in Selenium terms, it returns a list of web elements. Say that this statement, $, statement, I'll try, and I have, I think, a demonstration over here. It should be, yes, here. Look at this highlighted line. Look at this highlighted line, right? It is referring by $. And there is the typical CSS selector. And this CSS selector returns more than one web element, right? So in that occasion, in that instance, you cannot instantiate a particular web or a Selenide element and take hold of the returned value. So for that, you need Selenide type or Selenium web element type element list. Here in Selenium, you need a list of web elements to deal with in such occasions. But here, there it has a component called element collections in built. There it has an element collection list in built. So I mean, unlike in Selenium, where you need to create a list of web elements by yourself. That's a bit of a Java there, but you don't need to have any sort of Java knowledge to do this. It has an inbuilt element collection in Selenide. So that's the difference. I'm trying to sort of bridge the gap and sort of get you into a same stream, right? Hope you would have understood. So, and you can use the by locator, so the by class, same as you done it in Selenide element class as well, right? You can use the by in your Selenide element collections as well. There's nothing different, right? Usually when you get a Selenide element object by the $command, you can perform, like, I mean, these are the slides that I've already explained you. You can perform some action, or you can perform some condition on it. Like here in this example, these are all what I have explained you before, just a little while ago. This part you will get to know in my presentation in future slides. It's about the conditions where you can perform on top of your, this is the Selenide element. This part returns the Selenide element, and on top of that you can perform some conditions. And $, you can for composite element locations, you can use $, syntax as well. That's another usage of $, syntax, right? Take a look at this example. Here, this is typical XPath locator. Take a look at how long, I mean, this locator is. It is a very, very long. I mean, sometimes it's pretty difficult to take a grip of, or to keep focus on the lengthy locators, like in this example. So what Selenide does, it gives you more readable and debuggable sort of a concise selector. You can do this. You can, I mean, sort of like, how should I explain? I mean, you can divide the sort of locator into two parts, and you can do something like this. First part, and then it returns here, this part, before this dot sign, it returns the web element, Selenide web element. And you can perform another action on top of this Selenide element, right? So that's why it's more concise and readable, and it increases the readability, of course it does, and it increases the debuggability as well, because when you're debugging, if in any case when you're debugging, it's pretty easy when your selectors are very concise or short, rather, right? So that's the $, the usage, another usage of $. So let's get into Selenide in general. Selenide general methods. You have many more. I have only listed very few Selenide methods over here, and I have a few more in my code examples as well. On top of Selenide class, you can use selenide.sleep to keep your thread sleep. You can refresh your script, or rather, correction, you can refresh your web page. You can get the title of your window. You can rather move back and forth. There's a method called back, and there's a method called forward, where you can traverse back and forward, like in your browser controllers. I mean, those are some additional, or those are some concise features that Selenide brings out to you. I mean, if any of you would have had some sort of an experience playing around with Selenium, you would have known how much of a difficulty or how much of a going around the bush it was when it comes to Selenium to access these sort of cool features which the Selenide brings to you in build. And what about the confirmation? Where do you use it? If anyone of you know, or sort of has an idea in where do you use this confirm? Any one of you? Like I told you, I would love to have your interactions, but any one of you know? Will you use this confirmation, the confirm methods, this confirmation thing, when you're dealing with what do you call the dialog boxes? There can be different dialog boxes. There are pop-up messages, alerts, JavaScript messages, and all that. You use this. So this Selenide brings all those facts in build. All those methods are coming in build, right? Now, Selenide element. It's all about the Selenide element and set of elements that I've spoke many things. Those are which you can. Those are which about the actions you can perform, or the conditions that you can assert on the Selenide element. So let's look at what the Selenide element is. The Selenide element class is a wrapper over Selenium web element that adds rather useful methods. Yes, it is a wrapper written on top of Selenium web element, but it has some rather useful methods, like I told you, right? And it says it's a proxy element. Why does it say it's a proxy element? And there is some things that you can do on top of Selenide element. You can access the inner element. You can check the state of it. And like I showed you, you can perform some action on top of it. And you can access the element attributes as well. Right. For the time being, let's look at why does it called a proxy element? Why is it? Does anyone know? I don't think so. Okay, so let's look at why then. The object returned by the $command is called a proxy element. Why? At the moment of creation of the proxy element, the real search of the element on the page is not initiated. That's why it is called a proxy element. I don't think many of you would have understood what I've said. So I'll brief you, I'll explain you. So many of you would have would have understood and know by now that this $command returns your Selenide element, right? At the moment of creation of the proxy element, the real search of the element on the page is not initiated. At the point of creation means at the point of we are locating, we do not initiate the element search on the page that you need. The people who have an idea on scripting using Selenium, or sort of has an idea on how the DOM works, right, would have understood this. At the point of creation, you don't go and search that in the DOM. That's why it says that you don't need, you are not performing a real search on the element on the page at the point of initiation. But on any subsequent action or a condition check, the actual replica of the page element will be required by the proxy element, and the corresponding action or the corresponding check will be proxied on it. So at the point of you're performing some action or some performing some condition on it, right? But on any side, it says that I'm reading out the definition. It says that, but on any subsequent action or a condition check on that particular replica of the page element will be required by the proxy element. It says that when you're actually referring to the element, that it will proxied. The element is proxied to it, right? You don't need to get into, you don't need to dig deep into that to understand, but I told you for your reference, for your knowledge, for the time being. So if you do not understand it 100%, let's keep it aside and let's move forward, and you will understand while you're doing it by yourself. So you're getting your hands dirty, you will understand it, right? So let's move forward. Like I told you, using dollar and both double dollar methods, it returns a proxy element, and it does not need to be real at the beginning. So you can create, this is something different because of that. This is what you called locate chaining, right? You can perform different you can sort of composite the expressions like I showed you before in the previous example, if you can remember, with the length part. This is what you call compositing. This is locate chaining, and you can sort of do this because of that proxy nature, right? It doesn't need to be real at the beginning, so you can create locate chains, right? So because of that, you should have sort of an idea. Because of that reason, that you need you'll be doing this, and it makes your life easy and readable and debuggable. Like I told you, it's because of this, right? Some actions that you can these all are the facts that I've brought you earlier. You can click, double click, you can hover, you can press enter, you can press escape, and you can, the fact that I have pointed out these actions is because that when it comes to selenium, I just wanted to the contrast, the difference between selenium and selenide. So then you can sort of get a grasp on what the selenide is and how does it make your life easy. So in click, in both occasions, it's a matter of click, right? But when it comes to double click, when it comes to hover, when it comes to pressing keys, when it comes to selecting an option through drop down, when it comes to drag and drop, right? In Selenium, you need action class. And it's about, it is something like going around the bush. Here in Selenide, you have given direct access. I'll show you in my code examples if the time permits, hope we do. So then you can better understand. Refer to this when I'm showing you showing you this in code examples, right? So for the time being, let's remember that you can perform some actions, right, on top of your Selenide element. Right, you can get Selenide element status as we are following methods. You can either get, I mean, like I told you, if you can remember, you can access the attributes, you can get the text out of it, you can get the inner text, and you can do these actions on top of Selenium element, Selenide element, correction, Selenide element, that is, right? And let's look at the conditions. I'm going a bit quickly because I have got a code demonstration for you. So that's the place where you understand it better. So let's get into that quickly. Before that, let's finish it. So that's why I'm going through a bit quickly. So, but in any case, if you feel that is any point of unclarity, you can just put your hand up, or you can post your questions in the chat as well. Right, let's look at the conditions. The time is running faster. All right, so you can impose different types of conditions on the Selenide element. This is how you do. This is the place where you, I mean, there is should be, should have, should not, right? And there are many more. I'll give you the documentation so you can go through it and you can perceive by yourself what are the conditions that you have. And this condition part, there's separate set of conditions. I'll show you them. So these conditions are used if you can remember, like I told you, if you're using Selenium, you should be referring to TestNG or to JUnit to do the validations. That is what you call the assertioning, right? So here, like I told you, it comes to you in built. That's why it gives you these options, right? I think I have the set of conditions in these presentations. Let's see. Yeah. There are sort of these are few I should say, that there is set of conditions. One is visible and one is appear, right? It says that should be visible, right? This is the should be is the syntax part, and this visible is the condition. And you are, look here, you referring to you are locating a Selenide element using this input CSS locator, and on top of the returned Selenide element, you're performing this validation that it says that this input field should be visible. And there is different, like I told you, there are different set of, I mean, there are many set of conditions where you can assert on. All right, you can assert on the existence, the presence, and many more here in like in this example, right? Hope you would have understood. So you can do the assertions on the read only as well. These were not found in what you call in Selenium, right? You can find on you can assert on the attributes as well. Should have the name, should have this name on this input. So you can do that as well, right? It's about getting to know what are the conditions that you have in Selenide. So then you can play around with the conditions, and you can use this syntax right after your Selenide locator. So then you can perform conditions, and you based on the condition you use, you can do the validation, right? Hope you would have understood. Right. Selenide selectors. These are the ones that I've told you before as well. You can use the text, by text, with text, by title, by value, and you can use the by, and you can use the attributes inside your parentheses, and by XPaths, you can, I mean, if you can remember, here, I can remember, where did I write that? Did I write that here? Like in this example, you can use by and by XPath, or like that is same like in Selenium. You can use by selector, by XPath, right? Like that, you can use these by text. Also, you can locate elements with text. You can use. So this is just no rocket science. I think you would have. I mean, you could easily understand this. So we don't need to waste much time on this particular slide. So let's move forward. And at any point, you can. I mean, ask any question, right? Right, Selenide collections. So this is the collection that I've referred to earlier. The object of this class is also a proxy, like I told you, the same way that the object was, I mean, the same way as an object of Selenide element class, this object can be created by calling double dollar methods. This is what I've showed you at the beginning of this presentation. Right, you can use it. I mean, you can refer to a list using double dollar command, and it returns a web element list or Selenide element list rather on the page, and you can assert on the collections, trigger the search of the actual elements on the page for the proxy collection. That's again, like I told you, if your Selenide element is a proxy element, this Selenide collection should be also a proxy collection. So that's what it says, and perform checked based on the collection condition. So similar to what you have done with your Selenide element, you can do the same with your Selenide element collections as well. You can rather, I think, some demonstrations on that. There were, I mean, the only difference is that Selenide comes to you with rich implementation or enhanced features. I'll show you if I have. We'll see. Yes, here. Let's see where I can find. Yeah, this is the collection, and you can find here what it does. It takes a set of web element collections, and it says that here in this, the first element should have the text this, right? But in Selenium, you did not have this direct access. You should have to get your web element collections to a web element list, and you need to iterate, and you need to find the first element of the list, and you need to get the text, and that's about 3-4 lines of code. But here in Selenide, it's about a single line of code. It's about getting your collections to this collection element, and you can refer through this method to the first element of that collection, and you can perform that's here. Here will return up to here, it will return a selenide element now. Now it is referring to the first element, right? Here it's a element collection. Now it refers, this whole part is referring to an element, right? And on top of an element, you can perform this condition. And you can do the same with the collection element as well, right? I'm referring to a better example. Oh. Right, these are the examples that I've written for in accessing the inner HTML, the inner text. Like I told you, you can, if you can remember, in my Selenide element, when I'm describing the Selenide element, I told you that you can access the, you can perform some actions, and in, on those actions, you can do access the inner HTML, the inner text, and stuff, right? These are some conditions, right? Unfortunately, I cannot find that example, which I've written for the element collections, but only what I find is this thing. Anyway, we'll go through it properly until towards the end. Right, you can get the size of the, I mean, now we are referring, get back to and focus on the Selenide element collection, right? Now you can get the size of it, whether, I mean, you can perform a condition, and you can say, for an instance, you can check whether that is empty or not. You can get the text, like I told you, right? Method selectors of a specific collection. You can do filter by, you can exclude, you can perform what you call get the particular, say that you're referring to an element collection, and you want to sort of access a particular, these are the ones in common, so that with Selenium as well. So that's why I don't need to get into dig deep, so that the people who understand Selenium, have worked with Selenium collections, would have I mean, easily get on hold of it. So these are some, I mean, you can filter by, I mean, say, this is something interesting. So what do you mean by this? This here, what do you, I mean, this is something interesting. Let's see whether you can answer this. What does this returns? I mean, I'm referring to this double dollar multi-row, this Norris phrase. What does it return? If anyone can answer, put your hand up, and either you can put that in the chat, or you can shout out and say the answer. This is, these two are standouts of Selenium, the Selenide element collection, or rather Selenide. This thing you cannot do using Selenium directly. This filter by and excludes. What does it returns? This thing. Filter by, if anyone can answer. No one. So we are running out of time. So I'll go through it quickly. Here, it returns a collection. And this helps to filter the collection by this condition. What's the condition? It says that return me or filter me only the rows which has the text Norris. Exclude all the other rows. That is what it says. It's a pretty concise or a good filtration, where you do not need to go around the bush in filtering. When it comes to Selenium, you should be, I mean, should be writing many lines of code to filter the set of rows which contains the word Norris. But here in Selenide, it's a matter of just a single line of code. It's just a matter of applying a condition in the likes of filter. And here in the next one, excludes with is doing the right opposite of what it was done by this filter. Exclude is the right opposite. I don't want to. I think I don't want to go deep and explain you that. And get is similar as Selenium. You can get the you can throw the index of the Selenide element collection, and you can refer to that particular Selenide element in that index. That's what this get method does. Right. There are some more actions you can perform on the Selenide element collections. And like I told you, I'll give you all those access to the documentation that you can go through freely, and you can, these facts are not that difficult ones. What I wanted to sort of focus on is on the logic, or the sort of basic implementation, or rather core of Selenide. So these things are just a matter of going through, and you can understand now, right? You can refer to the size, you can see whether that's empty or not. You can say whether that is greater than or less than or whatever. You can perform these actions on top of your Selenide collection. Right. What do you mean by this WebDriver runner? We have come to the final parts of our presentation, or rather this Selenide webinar. So before going into the code demonstration, what do you mean by this WebDriver runner? This WebDriver runner is the people, I mean, before going to that, I should say that I told you at the beginning that this is a wrapper, the Selenide. The whole thing, the Selenide is a wrapper written on top of Selenium. So when if you have an understanding, or if you have an experience in Selenium, writing a sort of wrappers, or a small sort of wrappers, or a sort of a small framework, you would have known that every time that you write the wrapper, you do not forget to give the access to the native WebDriver or the native implementation. You keep space, or you rather give access for the people who are using your wrapper or the framework, the access of the native implementation. So what is the native implementation of Selenide? That is Selenium, right? Selenium WebDriver, right? So WebDriver runner gives you basically an insight or an access towards WebDriver. There are things that you cannot, there are pros as well as there are cons as well. Such cons is that cons is a disadvantage. Pros is advantage. There are advantages as well as disadvantages in everything. Right? There is nothing called that you only have pros. So same like that, you will find cons in Selenide as well. So what are those? So such as things such as maximizing the window, right? You do not find a direct implementation to maximize your window. So in that case, I'll show you that in my code demonstration. You better understand that with the examples. So there you might need the help of the native WebDriver. That's why they have kept that space by the likes of WebDriver runner, right? This class defines some browser management methods. So you can see, I mean, if you are, like I told you, if you have some sort of an idea with regard to framework development or a wrapper, if you have at some point of time in your coding life or programming life, or in your undergraduate life by that, so if you have sort of an understanding on how to develop a framework, you would have found with this property file. this is where you do your browser compatibility or browser implementations. Rather, there you need this where to check whether the browser is Chrome or whether it is headless, where you need to define your base URL. You need to get the page source. So this WebDriver runner gives you the access to all of these, right? And finally, like I told you, you can either set the WebDriver and you can get the WebDriver as well, right? And finally, Selenide configuration. There is nothing much. There is a property. There is always a property file where you can, like in Selenium, where the things, the properties or the attributes where you define, which you define in your property file, you can do it using the Selenide configuration. You can rather configure your timeouts or element or a collection timeouts, or the browser that you, I mean, these are simple facts, right? I don't need to waste much time in explaining this, because you'll get to know by a single glimpse, right? So you can rather define your properties in your configuration. That Selenide will bring you, as facilitated you to do that as well, right. Additionally, and I should tell you that this configuration is because that Selenide gives you a default implicit weight, right? I hope that you would have know the difference between implicit and explicit weight. Implicit weight is just that you wait for some particular time, but explicit wait is where you wait for a condition, right? And polling interval, you can check I mean, there's an interval where you come and check whether the condition is true or not. And when the condition is true, you skip the wait and you move to your next action. So there is an implicit wait inbuilt in Selenide. So that's helps to make it more stable as well. If you can remember, at the beginning of the presentation, I told you that it is much stable, right? So that's one reason. And additionally, it is possible to pass configuration options as system properties, like I told you, when configuration tests execution, such as on CI servers, right? Right. These are some official sites. Before getting into these references, let me walk you through these demonstrations. I have a few code demonstrations for you. Well, I have divided them into, this is the most interesting and the most important part. And if any undergraduates are, I mean, feeling sleepy, remember that you need to keep your eyes open, wide open, in this section. Doesn't matter how much concentrated you on the slides, but if you sleep in this, you will not take a grip of what I've tried to explain, right? Here, this is basic interactions part. We'll start from that. It's about clicking and sending or typing. This is just a sort of a recap of what I've been saying for all this throughout this 1 hour and 10 minutes, right? So let's focus on this and finish off so that you can better understand it properly, right? This is the opening statement. This is the element locator, and it returns, this part returns an Selenide element where you can perform action. Here I'm performing an action, click. And you can do the same as in Selenium using the send keys method as well, right? It's just another click again. Is one basic interaction you can do, right? And the second basic interaction, it's about checkbox. How about I can show you this, I mean, execute this code and show you, but it'll take time, so that I'll try and explain you as much as you can so that you can better understand, because otherwise I've got many code demonstrations for you. It would not, the time does not permit me to execute and show. I'll try and explain and go through the code. So here, this is checkbox. To interact with checkbox, this is the locator or the identification locator of the checkbox, and you can click and you can double click or do whatever on top of your radio or checkbox. You double click, it'll uncheck. You click, it will be checked, right? So there is nothing much in it, right? Third one, let's see, drop downs. This is the one that I can show you a bit of comparison, right? Let's focus on this, that you can understand the clarity or the easiness, the conciseness, the facts or the attributes that I was boasting about, you can understand now, right? It's about, when it comes to Selenium, this code part is explaining you just a common code path where you open and where you, this is the WebDriver runner class that I was referring to a little while ago. And I'm getting an instance of driver because I do want to get my screen, get my browser instance into a full screen, so that like I told you, there is no option in Selenide, that's a con, to maximize the window. So it's a set of a common set of code chunk where I've used in most of my code implementations. Here, this is the part that you need to focus. This is a drop-down selector, right? This is a drop-down selector where you can click and you can select. You need to click. Even if you do not click, that doesn't matter. But you can click, you can expand, you can see it visually, and you can. You don't need to see it visually to get the thing done. But what I'm trying to explain you is the action that you can perform on top of a drop down, right? Using Selenide and Selenium as well, so they can better contrast both, right? Select the first option, right? This is a direct command. Select the first option. Either you can give, so it will return the first value of the drop down. Either you can select the option by the text that you give, saying that, okay, in this instance, you can select Wednesday by giving the Wednesday as your parameter. And either you can, if you're not sure of what it is, or if you have a sort of very much, a lot of content in your drop down, you can give your text containing part. So then it'll fetch and it'll select Tuesday here, right? So this selector is this drop down is a set of days in your week, right? Here, look, now this is in Selenide, where it gives you the direct option of selecting. But look at the same thing in Selenium, right? You have this select class. You need to instantiate this, right? You need an instance of this, and you need to import this select, and you need to use that. It's a bit of a going around the bush. You will understand in further advanced methods as interactions as well. Here, it's 2 lines of code rather. Where here, look at the same example here, it's a single line of code, right? So that's why I said it's a concise and it's pretty easy, and it gives you a lot of powerful, what do you call, the selectors and the options, that it brings you a lot of flexibility, right? That's about the drop downs. And when it comes to window handles, where I can explain you the cons, like I already explained. You can directly access the title. This is same as Selenium. You can get the title using Selenium in this way and Selenide in this way, right? And you can, I mean, these just general methods is displayed. You can, I mean, these are just general things. I don't want to get much of the time on that. So let's look at advanced interaction. This is the most interesting part. And this is the place where you understand the difference, right? When it comes to window handles, right? Here, when it comes to window handles, in Selenide, you do not have a direct option. That's again a disadvantage. In Selenium, you would have had, you can access, you can get the number of open or active window handles directly. But here, you do not, in Selenide, you do not have that facility, right? You cannot say that on a particular click, you'll open few windows, say 3 windows that you, if you're using Selenium, you can get, I mean, you can run the logic, I mean, say that you do not know how many windows open, so that you can, I mean, in Selenium, you can see or you can check how many windows are open using by get, I mean, I can't remember the name of the method, but there is a method to specifically get the number of window handles open. But here in Selenide, you do not have that option. You need to exactly know to which window or the tab or the frame that you need to navigate to. So I mean, if you do not know how many windows or the frames or the tabs have opened up, you cannot, it is a bit difficult here, right? And the thing that I've explained you, the maximization, you do not have option in Selenide to get it done directly. And when it comes to coordinates or the positions, the locations, you do not have, there is no specific way in Selenide to get the window coordinate. Instead, you can use the same way as above. I mean, it's like this. If you want to get the window coordinates, right, you have to use this WebDriver runner, and you have to use the Selenium native methods. But you can, there's a specific way in Selenide to get the element coordinate. I hope you would have you can differentiate the element coordinate and the window coordinate. So you can, in Selenide, you can get the particular element coordinate, but not the window coordinate, right? You would have, I mean, you need these advanced interaction when you are like referring to more advanced topics in Selenide or Selenium, or in your like writing framework or stuff like that. But in day-to-day coding, you would not find this coordinate stuff many. Right, many a time. So let's look at the second interaction. This is with regard to double click, drag and drop, and in Selenium versus Selenide, right? Let's look at the double click. You do not find this option directly in Selenium. Here it has this option directly. You can perform on top of your Selenide element. Same as this. You do not have the facility to scroll to a particular element directly. You would have, I mean, you had that option, but it's a sort of a going around the bush. You use this actions class, like I showed you before below, right? Look, you have to bind your WebDriver with that. You have to cast it here, and then it's 3 lines of code, where here it's a single line of code, right? Same as the scroll as well. Same to the scroll as well. If you want to scroll, it's about writing many lines of code. But here, it's just a simple single statement. Drag and drop, same. Look how easy it is. You have to give the source, and you have to locate the source and drag and drop to, and you have to give the from and to locations. From is the one that you drag, the item, the web element that you drag, or the to is where you want to get it dragged to. Here, it's going around the bush. You need to get the actions class, and you need to get to a separate web elements, and then you need to call this. I mean, hope you'd have understood. It's some sort of a tedious task. That's what I wanted to sort of get you into. When it comes to Selenide, it's pretty easy. So as time runs out, I'll get back to the presentation. Hope you'd have had some sort of an idea on what the whole thing is about. Right. These are the official sites you can always refer to. These sites, I think SLASSCOM will give you the whole recording of the stuff, and then you can always refer to these sites for your self reference and self studying. And Selenide API, Selenide jar files, these two, of course, I've given you at the start of this presentation. And hope you had some sort of an idea of what Selenide is. I tried my best in explaining you. Thank you very much. And don't forget to keep your questions posted to either to my email address, or you can either send it back to the SLASSCOM portal as well. Well, we have, I think, almost we have ran out of time, I think, but I'll give you space for questions for 5 minutes. We'll see if anyone is willing to ask questions. You have the forum open. Just 5 minutes remaining, as we have run out of time right now too. the silence means that I think no one would, knowing the Sri Lankan audience, I don't think anyone would ask any question.
Harshana,
Yeah.
There's one question, I think.
Yeah.
There's a question from Pumika. What are the report generating tools we can use with Selenide?
Rather, Selenide is just a wrapper on top of the Selenium. Like I told you, it has not gone up to the, I mean, what's the good name of the Pumika. Pumika, it's a sort of a wrapper written on top of, it's a very good question, but it is not a comprehensive sort of a framework written. It has not gone up to that reporting level, but it's about sort of managing the basic Selenium interactions. It has not gone up to that level of up to reporting and stuff like that, as of my knowledge, because it's about sort of rich interactions with regard to scripting, right? I don't think, as of my knowledge, up until now, there's nothing mentioned in the author's manual as well. It has not gone up. I mean, there's a different, it's a different paradigm that you're talking about. I mean, reporting and stuff like that comes in ternary, because Selenide is in the sort of secondary level. It has not gone up to it, since it is not, I mean, it is not required as well, because see, it is not a sort of a complete framework which you can use, I mean, sort of as a complete framework, right? Hope that I've answered your question. Right? So is that all?
I think so, Harshana. So hi all, so this is Tushar from SLASSCOM. Harshana, thank you very much for your time and for the wonderful presentation. I'm sure everyone learned out of that presentation. And also to keep you all posted, like Harindu mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will be doing weekly webinars for undergraduates in the coming weeks. So stay tuned to our social media. We will be posting our upcoming events. So this will be specifically for undergraduate students. It will be covering number of topics, technical and from the industry experts. So hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you.